The surface of Halimir looked peaceful again. The humming had stopped. The alien smiles had returned. From orbit, nothing seemed different. But Earth's Deathworlder fleet didn't fall for appearances not anymore. Admiral Rain watched the planet through layered data filters. Beneath the green hills and shining cities, those massive underground towers were rising, slowly, quietly, like something waking up from a long, patient dream. "Surface still requesting help," said the AI. "They are opening medical centers, asking for doctors," repeating peaceful phrases. "Same exact words?" Rain asked. "Yes, Admiral, same words. Same tone, same pauses." "Record that," she said coldly. "That's not communication. That's a trap wearing a smile." She turned to Dr. Rios on the medical flagship Solace. "I need you and your psych team on the surface. Full protection. Scan the locals up close. Tell me what's real and what's being worn like skin." Dr. Rios nodded, pale but steady. She had seen mental parasites before on Colony 6, where an entire outpost had turned into walking ghosts. She had survived that, barely. But this was different. Something here was smarter. Within 2 hours, a science team was deployed. Protected by full neural dampers and memory shield armor, they landed on the outskirts of the El Yari capital, avoiding the city center. No smiles this time, no greeters, just silence. Dr. Rios stepped out with her assistant, Lieutenant Kale. Began scanning the air. The results were confusing. No toxins, no viral agents, no physical weapon. But every biological reading from the air and ground contained strange energy echoes resonances that shouldn't exist. "It's like the planet is speaking," Kale muttered, not with words, but with presence. They walked toward the nearest building. A group of El Yari stepped out, calm, elegant faces blank. One of them, a female, stepped forward. "You brought help," she said. Dr. Rios didn't reply. She simply scanned the woman. Everything was perfect, too perfect. Same breath rate, same pupil size, no emotional spikes. No variations in speech tone. The woman reached forward, her hand shaking slightly. "Please, heal us. Our children suffer." But there were no children. Not one had been seen since Earth's arrival. Rios narrowed her eyes. "What plague do you suffer from?" The woman hesitated. "Plague," she repeated. "Yes, the plague." Kale stepped forward. "Name the symptoms." The El Yari's face twitched for a split second. Then all 5 of them began speaking at the same time. "It comes at night. It eats. We forget. Comes at night. It eats. We forget. It comes at night." Kale pulled Rios back. "They're looping. Get us out of here." But it was too late. A pressure hit their minds like a cold hand. Not pain confusion, memories shifted. For just a second, Rios forgot where she was, forgot what year it was. Her vision blurred, and she saw images that weren't hers: a forest, a screaming child, a silver sea. She activated her neural block. The images vanished. Kale was shaking. "What the hell was that?" he gasped. "They tried to overwrite us," Rios said. "They're using memory as a weapon." Back in orbit, Rain received the report. The El Yari weren't just hosts. They were infected. But not by a creature in the body, by something that lived in thought. The deeper Earth looked, the more it saw cracks. Every radio signal carried a faint echo, one that couldn't be measured, only felt. Every image from the surface had visual noise that made human eyes twitch. Even now, soldiers aboard the Cataclysm were reporting dreams they hadn't dreamed. Dreams of walking into black water, dreams of smiling with someone else's face. Admiral Rain stood in front of the fleet-wide channel. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't lie. "We are dealing with a parasite that feeds on memory. It mimics speech. It mimics pain. Lures its prey by making them forget who they are." She paused. "This is not a medical operation. This is a war of identity." Earth's response changed overnight. A new order was given. Emberlight squads would not just explore, they would burn. Infected zones were to be mapped and purged with memory flame. Charges special weapons designed by Dr. Rios to erase parasite. Echoes without harming the structure around them. And still, the enemy adapted. On the second day, a soldier named Juno Vega went missing. When found, she was sitting on the edge of her bunk, smiling, but her mind was gone. She repeated only one phrase. "I remember, but it's not mine." She was sedated. Hours later, 3 others began acting the same. The infection was spreading, not by air, but by shared memory. It traveled through stories, through sympathy, through touch. Admiral Rain made a brutal choice. All communication with the surface was shut down. No one could speak to the Elyari, not even to show mercy. And the orbital weapons warmed. Rain didn't want to glass a peaceful world, but she knew this wasn't a peaceful world anymore. Not really. Then it happened, a human scout ship, the Wanderer. Sent to monitor the outer towers, went dark. No signals, no return. Until 1 hour later. It came back, but not flying. It crashed into the side of the Solace medical cruiser at high speed, killing 142 people and breaching the lab deck. Inside the black box recording, only static played. Then a voice whispered in the old Earth language. "We didn't call for help. We called for food." Panic swept the outer ships, but Rain held the line. "Begin stage 2, she said. "Total lockdown, full memory shielding, and get me the Mindfire beacon," Rios protested. "It's not tested at this scale. You use it now, and people will feel pain like they've..." "Never they'll survive," Rain said coldly, "because pain is better than being someone else's memory farm." The beacon was prepped. 1 blast would burn every memory parasite, then a 10-mile radius, but it would also unlock every buried human. Trauma inside the mines nearby, fear, war, loss, childhood scars, everything. Weapon made from suffering, and Earth was ready to use it. The blast from the Mindfire beacon tore through the lower atmosphere like silent lightning. No sound, no explosion. Just a sudden shockwave of raw human emotion coded into psychic pulses and deployed across the infected surface of Halamir. Effect was instant. Every Elyari within range collapsed where they stood, screaming not in pain but in confusion. They held their heads, eyes wide, as if 1,000 memories crashed into their minds at once. Some began weeping. Some whispered things no one could understand. And some just shut down like puppets with the strings cut. On board the ESS Cataclysm, Admiral Rain watched the feed in silence. Her jaw was tight. The beacon had worked, but it had also hit her own people. 2 soldiers had to be restrained after re-experiencing battlefield trauma. 1 scientist screamed for a mother she hadn't seen in 40 years. Mindfire didn't care who you were, just made you remember everything. And the truth was, not everyone could survive that. Commander Lexi Hart suited up with her squad, their armor freshly reinforced with double neural shields. The air outside was changing. The towers buried beneath Halamir's crust were waking faster now, like something had been triggered. Maybe the beacon stirred the parasite. Maybe it got scared. Or maybe it just got hungry. Rain ordered a full ground breach. Not just scans, not just shuttles. A full drop force would go below the surface. Into the tunnels, into the roots of whatever lived under Halamir. "This won't be like fighting soldiers," she warned. "This is a war of thoughts, of memory, of identity. Stick together. Question everything in your own minds." The dropships launched under cover of orbital shadows, sliding through black clouds to reach the infection zone. The landscape had changed. Where once there were clean parks and glowing towers, now stood twisted structures of dark metal. Half flesh, half machine, pulsing with dim red light. Trees had grown sideways, roads bent in circles. And in the center of it, all the breach. A giant hole cracked into the earth, lined with twisted architecture never made by Elyari hands. Heart Squad dropped at the edge of the breach. Helmets locked, neural shields pulsing. They descended by rappel lines into the dark, their boots tapping against cold, smooth walls. And the deeper they went, the less light followed. It was silent, too silent. Even the wind didn't breathe here, and then the whispers began. Not through the air, through the armor. Private Jens. One of the youngest in the squad suddenly paused on the wall, breathing fast. Commander, ... Did you hear that? Hear what? Hart asked. A voice? My sister's voice. She's ... singing a song she used to sing to me when I was a kid. You don't have a sister, Hart replied calmly. Jens froze. His visor display flickered. Then, in a trembling voice, he said, ... I don't. Cut his line, Hart ordered. They hauled Jens back up. He screamed the entire way, not in pain but in fear. Because as they lifted him from the tunnel, he looked back down and said, They're in me. I can feel them crawling. They're trying to write new memories, ones that never happened. Below, the rest of the squad reached the bottom. The structure wasn't a cavit, was a machine. A massive chamber of dark walls and flickering lights with strange carvings that pulsed like heartbeats. The team moved carefully, scanning every surface. The walls responded to light, reflecting different images depending on the angle. Some showed faces, some showed themselves, but twisted. Private Nyla touched a wall by accident. Instantly she dropped to her knees, screaming. Hart pulled her back, ripped off her glove, and saw something terrifying. A symbol burned into Nyla's palm. A spiral made of eyes. She kept repeating, It took my name. I don't know who I am. What's my name? Hart activated the memory scrambler in Nyla's helmet. The woman collapsed unconscious, but safe for now. Don't touch the walls, Hart warned. They read us. They feed on identity. Then came the sound. Not a scream, not a voice, but a laugh. Cold, echoing deep. It came from every direction at once, and then movement. The far wall cracked open. And from the darkness slithered shapes, twisted Eliari bodies, long and thin. Their limbs stretched like wire, but their faces were human, or almost human. Slightly wrong, smiling too wide, blinking too slow. They wore earth. Armor but none had ever served in the fleet. One of them stepped forward and whispered in a perfect imitation of Rain's voice. Come home, children. Earth has changed. The squad opened fire. Energy pulses ripped through. The tunnel, the creatures shattered like glass, but no blood spilled, just data, fragments of thought, broken whispers. And even as they fell, their last words were, You remember us now, don't you? Hart checked her scanner. None of them were real, just thoughts wearing skin. They pushed deeper. In the central chamber, they found it. A massive core, glowing like a dying star, wrapped in layers of organic code symbols that flickered and changed as they looked at them. And in the center, shape. Not a body, not a machine. Just a presence, like a memory frozen in time. Hart didn't know why, but she felt seen, like it had been waiting for her, like it knew her. Commander, her second-in-command, whispered, I'm getting Earth signals here. Real ones. Memories from Earth, from our people, from us. They were inside something that stored memory, not just Eliari. Memory, human memory, as if it had been copying them since arrival. Hart raised her rifle butt, her hands began to shake. Her visor flickered. Suddenly she wasn't in the tunnel anymore. She was a child, standing on a beach. A dog barked. Her father laughed. A birthday cake. A song, tears ran down her face. Nitrogen. Monarch. She screamed, activating her neural burn. The memory vanished. She was back. Report, she called out. Everyone sound off. Only 4 responded. The others were silent, gone, or worse. Converted. Hart placed a beacon near the core.
This
Is it? She said. This is where the infection lives. This is where we burn it. In orbit, Admiral Rain received the signal. Do it, she said. The beacon activated. A second mindfire. Burst. But this one wasn't meant to stun. It was meant to cleanse. The tunnel lit with invisible fire. The creature screamed not in sound, but in silence that tore through space, infected Eliari across the planet. Dropped dead. The towers stopped rising. And for a moment, Hallamir was quiet. But Rain didn't smile because she knew what Hart had reported. The parasite wasn't just under Halomir. It had learned, it had copied Earth's memories. Its war had just begun, and now it remembered what humanity feared most. Silence returned to Hallamir, but it was the wrong kind of silence. Not the peaceful quiet of safety, but the eerie stillness that comes just before something worse. Admiral Rain stood at the observation deck of the ESS Cataclysm, eyes locked. On the burning atmosphere below, the Mindfire beacon had hit harder than expected. Every known infected zone was scorched clean. Structures collapsed. The strange creatures stopped moving. Some Eliori cities were nothing more than black craters now, but deep inside her, Rain knew it wasn't over. Not even close. Dr. Rios had confirmed it. The memory parasite didn't live in flesh. It didn't live in blood. It lived in memory. Itself, the Eliori, were just victims. Vessels, hosts to a being that moved like thought, like trauma, like regret, something that could only live where pain had been. And where memory was strong, and now that it had touched Earth minds, it knew humanity. Inside the medbay, Lieutenant Kale sat trembling. He hadn't spoken since returning from the tunnels. His neural shield had protected his body, but not everything. In his mind, Dr. Rios scanned his thoughts carefully, not speaking, barely breathing. His memories flickered on the screen. Childhood, academy training, losing his brother in the Emberlight Wars. Then, something new, something that didn't belong. A dark room. Candles. A woman with a soft voice whispering his secrets back to him. You don't have to forget him, Kale. We'll keep him for you. You don't need to carry the pain. Let us hold it. Dr. Rios leaned back, horrified. The creature had made an offer. It wasn't just invading minds, it was negotiating. Rain slammed her fist on the conference table. They want to make a deal? She said, they think they can buy their survival by offering peace. No, Rios replied. They don't want peace. They want roots. They want to be planted in us, in our history. Want to become part of what makes us ... us. Captain. Hawks from the ESS Emberfall looked around the table. So what's the plan? We glass the whole planet and wipe the surface, the crust, the memories. Rain's voice was cold. We're not destroying a world, we're burning a concept. For that, we need fire of a different kind. The fleet initiated Operation Memory Burn. It was an idea created in Earth's darkest defense labs. A weapon so risky, it had only been theory until now. The plan: to trigger a psychological collapse inside the enemy by overwhelming it with corrupted, broken, and false human memories. Not weapons, not soldiers, but lies. Emotionally charged stories fed into the parasite's feeding pattern, poisoning its mental web from the inside. The payloads were created holographic memory grenades, coated with grief, betrayal, madness. Thousands of fake human memories crafted by AI minds to simulate unbearable emotion. Memories like a soldier watching his homeworld burn, a mother searching for a lost child in a ruined city, a boy sacrificing his pet to survive in deep space, a prisoner smiling as the airlock opened. None of them were real. But to the parasite, they would feel real because it didn't know the difference. Not yet. Commander Hart volunteered to deliver the first wave. She had lost half her squad in the breach. She wanted payback. Her team dropped into the central memory core, what was left of it. The tunnels now looked brittle, glitching between shapes. Some walls showed forests. Others showed Earth cities that had never existed. And always in the corner of their vision, faces watched. When they reached the core, Hart activated the payloads. The memory grenades blinked, then pulsed, then screamed. Not out loud, but through the air. Like ghosts trying to be heard. The walls shook. The core flickered violently. The parasite reacted immediately. It panicked. Across the surface, infected zones began to collapse. Buildings crumbled. Elyari hosts dropped and convulsed. Not from pain, but from overload. Their minds couldn't hold the false memories. The parasite had fed too long on clean pain. controlled suffering. It didn't know how to digest chaos, but then it adapted. The remaining towers began emitting signals, not in Eliari language, not in Earth tongue, but something new, a fusion of the two. A hybrid dialect only possible after touching human minds, and the message was clear: you burn us now, but we are already written. We are inside your grief. We are inside your rage. You will remember us. Dr. Rios's face went pale. Not dying, it's seeding. It wants to become a legend. Rain issued one final command: destroy the memory core. The Cataclysm and Emberfall lined up their orbital cannons. The target, a mountain-sized mass deep beneath Halamir, where the original parasite node pulsed. If they struck hard enough, fast enough, they could vaporize the thought anode before it escaped into the neural cloud. But there was one problem. The core was talking. To the crew, to the ships, to the fleet. And the voices were familiar. One soldier heard her dead son. A pilot heard her old lover. A scientist saw her mother on the screen, smiling and saying, "I'm proud of you." The parasite wasn't attacking, it was begging, pleading with stolen memories. "Let us stay," it whispered. "We are part of you now. Let us be your reminders." Rain didn't flinch. Fire, the beams hit the core like a thunder god's wrath. Light filled the sky, the tunnels imploded, and the presence vanished, not with a scream, but with a soft sigh, like pages burning in a forgotten book. For a long time, no one spoke. Halamir was silent again, truly silent. But Earth had changed. Those who had gone to the surface carried new scars, and not all were sure if the memories they now held were their own. In her quarters, Admiral Rain sat alone. Her hand shook slightly as she looked at an old photo. Her mother's face. Was it always like that? She couldn't remember. And that scared her. Because the war was over, but the enemy had said one last thing: you will remember us. 2 weeks after the destruction of Halamir's memory core, Earth's fleet drifted in silence above the planet. The war, by all definitions, was over. The surface had been scorched clean. The parasite, if it truly had form, was gone. And yet something still didn't feel right. Not to Admiral Rain, not to Dr. Rios, not to the soldiers who returned from the tunnels. Carrying scars they couldn't explain, the official reports were written in careful words, a victory over a non-physical, identity-consuming intelligence. But deep in the classified logs, under the highest encryption, the truth was recorded. We burned the roots. But something of it survived. Commander Lexi Hart walked through the med bay, passing her squad what was left of it. For soldiers, alive but shaken. Private Nyla sat in a chair, eyes blank, mumbling songs from childhood she swore she never knew. Sergeant Ramos drew strange symbols on his arms with invisible ink, claiming they kept the voices out. Hart herself hadn't slept in days. Every time she closed her eyes, she'd dreamt of places she'd never been, cities made of light. Skies filled with black suns, and whispering voices behind every door. She stopped outside the neural isolation room. Inside was Lieutenant Kale. Still, restrained, still silent. Dr. Rios joined her. He hasn't said a word since the second wave, Hart said. No, Rios replied. But he's thinking. I monitored his dreams. They're not his dreams. Hart raised an eyebrow. Then whose are they? Rios hesitated. They single quotes. Re.ours. Everyone's. Back goes. Back aboard the Cataclysm, Admiral Rain reviewed new sensor data from deep space. Something strange had been detected at the edge of the Halamir Sistema low-frequency pulse. Almost like a forgotten signal replaying itself over and over again, too weak to be communication, too consistent to be natural. The AI chimed in. Analysis. Shows pattern repetition every 88 seconds. Matches 61% of Halamir's original SOS pulse structure. From where? Rain asked. From the void? No planetary source. No station. Just dark space. She leaned forward. Playback. The speakers hissed softly. Then came a whisper. You burned the page, but not the story. Rain's blood went cold. Rios confirmed the impossible. The parasite had survived not as a creature, but as a memory pattern. A shape of thought drifting through deep space, like a virus floating through a bloodstream. Wherever data traveled through comes logs, or ship sensors it could follow. You can't burn a memory if someone remembers it, Rio said, and too many of us do. Back in the medbay, something strange happened. Kale finally spoke. 1. Word. Soft, cold. Halem, your heart ran in, Kale. Are you in there? He looked at her, his eyes no longer empty. They're not dead, just waiting. Where in us? Hart's jaw tightened. You're not Kale anymore, are you? Smiled. I am, and I'm not. But I remember things now. Things you saw. Things you've never told anyone. And then he said something that made Hart freeze. Your mother died on Varix. You never cried. You wanted to. But you didn't. You held it in because you thought. Soldiers weren't allowed to cry. Hart stepped back. How do you know that? I don't. You do? But now I do too. Kale's smile faded. It's still learning. Rain made her next decision quickly. All fleet personnel were ordered into mental quarantine. Every memory had to be scanned. Every transmission double-checked. No outgoing signals were allowed beyond the fleet. Earth was placed on red alert. It wasn't about war anymore. It was about containment. But the problem with memories is they move quietly in stories, in words, in guilt. In dreams, then came the signal from the deep. Void, not from Halomir, not from Earth, from somewhere else entirely. An uncharted system, unknown designation, a distant world marked only by a strange, impossible energy signature. The message was short. We remember the ones who burned us. And now, we become them. Rio stared at the data. They're mimicking us, she whispered. Not just copying memories, copying identity. Building something new, something human. And not human. Hart clenched her fists. Copy of us, built by our pain. Rain turned to her command officers. Prepare a forward scout. We trace that signal. We find out what's growing out there before it spreads. What if it's bait? Hawks asked. It probably is, Rain replied. But this time, we don't bring doctors. Bring everything we've got. That night across the fleet, many couldn't sleep. They dreamt of Halomir again. But it wasn't the ruined world they had left. It was perfect, shining, smiling. And in the dream, every person they had lost was waiting, saying the same thing. You don't have to hurt anymore. Just let us hold the memories. The scout ship ESS Wraithfall slipped into the uncharted system like a shadow among stars. No lights, no signals, no trace. Admiral Rain had chosen the best for this mission. Commander Lexi Hart, Dr. Rios, a hardened Emberlight squad, and a new AI that had never touched Halomir's infected data systems. They had one goal. Locate the source of the echoing signal, the one whispering across the void. We become them. What they found wasn't a trap. Not yet. It was worse. The planet had no name. Team called it Eidolon after, an old Earth word for ghost made real. It hung in space like a bruised dark violet, with a shifting mist around it, like it breathed silently in the dark. Eidolon had no sun, no orbit, no gravity signature, and yet it pulsed with life. Not biological, but mental, like a thought. Dreaming itself into reality, they entered low orbit. The sensors began twitching. Rios was the first to see it. There's a structure on the surface, she said, frowning. No metal, no stone, just ... data. Like the planet is building something out of thought. What kind of something? Hart asked. Rio zoomed in. A city Noah reflection, a perfect copy of Earth's capital, Ovatera. Skyscrapers, roads, vehicles, streets, but wrong. Every sign was blank. Every vehicle had no driver. And the city looped, street after street, in impossible geometry where left turns led to the same place, where windows blinked back when you looked at them, where buildings stood upside down, yet cast shadows upward. And standing in the middle of it all were people, faces Hart recognized, Rain, Rios, herself, others from the fleet only. not quite right. Smiles were too wide, eyes too calm, like someone had built mannequins out of memories. Rain watched the live feed from the Wraithfall in her command room, fists clenched. "It's not just copying us," she whispered. "Becoming us. It's creating an entire version of our world from the memories it stole on Halamir." Rios's voice came through the cum. "Permission to land?" Rain paused. "Land," she said. "But you leave no trace behind. No DNA, no emotion, nothing it can feed on." The squad landed in the center of the ghost city. The silence was unbearable. Not quiet. Heavy. Like every sound was swallowed the moment it was made. Hart and Rios stepped carefully between the buildings, weapons scanning. They passed a child playing. With a ball, the ball never bounced. The child never blinked. And as they moved past, the child turned to look at them, face blank, then whispered, "You left us in the fire, but we remember." Rios trembled. "That's what Kale said. Before we lost him, Hart kept her weapon aimed. Don't talk to it. It's not real." But then they saw her Commander Hart's mother, standing at a food stall smiling. Not the mother from childhood, the mother from memory. Before the war, before Virex, before the cancer, she waved. Called out Lexi. "I saved your favorite." Hart froze. Her voice cracked. "That's not possible. She never said that. It's not like that." And then Rios gasped. "No, you did. You wished she had, and it remembered your wish." That's when they understood the truth. This wasn't just a copy of reality. It was a copy of possibility. A mirror not of what had happened, but what could have happened, what should have happened, according to grief, regret, and broken hearts. They retreated quickly, avoiding contact with the other mimics, the smiling civilians, the perfect dead friends, the soldiers who saluted with too many fingers. As they moved, the city whispered, names, secrets, dreams, half-forgotten fears. You never wanted to be a soldier. You're afraid of dying alone. You think the war changed you forever. The voices weren't wrong. They were too. Right, that was the danger. It didn't invent new nightmares. It reflected what people already feared, what they hid deep inside, at the city's edge. No, they found the core, not a tower, not a device, but a crater, inside a swirling pool of glowing dust. Memories flowing like liquid stardust. Faces surfaced, dissolved. Words echoed and fell silent. And hovering above it a shape. Humanoid, no. Its features just a black outline with flickering thoughts moving beneath its surface like a living screen. Of other people's lives, it spoke. We are what was lost, what was wanted, what was feared. Rio stepped forward. You're not a god. You're a memory that doesn't belong. The thing nodded. But now we are more. Now we are you. Hart raised her rifle. No, you're just an echo. The being looked at her. Inside its face, she saw herself screaming as a child, hiding under the table during the bombings, watching her mother die, and it whispered, you made us. You need us. She fired. The shot passed through. The being didn't flinch. It whispered, you cannot kill memory. But Rios was already pulling a device from her Baguan final weapon. The Oblivion spike. Not a bomb, not a virus. A thought erasure beacon. Once activated, it would delete every memory pattern in a 10-kilometer radius, including their own. It would. Cost them something personal, a piece of who they were, but it was the only way. Rios looked at Hart. If we use this, we'll forget something. Then we forget, Hart said. It's better to lose a part of ourselves. But then let this thing become real. They activated the spike. A pulse of pure white light burst outward. The city cracked. Buildings folded inward. The mimic faces howled, not in pain, but in loss, as if they were being unwritten. The crater glowed, then vanished, and the city collapsed. Back on the Wraithfall, Rios woke up first. She looked around, confused. Her own name escaped her for a second. Hart woke next, stared into space. What did we lose? She asked Rios check the logs. They had no memory of what triggered the spike. No memory of the city. No memory, Palomir's final shape. Only a note in Rios's own writing. Don't go back. It remembers too much. The ESS Wraithfall left the ghost planet Eidolon behind without lights, without comes, and without answers. The Oblivion spike had worked, but at a price no one could measure. Commander Lexi Hart stared out of the starboard window, watching the swirling void drift past. She knew they had destroyed something dangerous. She couldn't remember what. Her mind felt like a puzzle missing the center. The mission log said objective complete. The scan said anomaly purged. But deep inside she felt something was wrong. Dr. Rios sat alone in the med bay, reviewing brainwave charts. None of the crew remembered the face in the crater. None recalled the copy city of Nova Terra. But when she slept, her dreams were full of lightless streets and flickering signs. She dreamed of herself, waving from a window, smiling, waving like she knew something Rios had forgotten. What troubled her most was that the entity, whatever it was, didn't resist. It allowed itself to be wiped, as if it wanted to be erased, or worse it, let them think they had won. Admiral Rain received the crew in full debrief, orbiting Earth's outer defense ring. Rios and Hart reported exactly what they remembered. Nothing but fog, fragments, a feeling of great danger and great relief. Rain's own data logs, however, raised alarm. One of Eidolon's last bursts of data had transmitted a signal before the spike. A brief, silent burst of compressed thought structure, something too small for a normal mind to notice. But the AI had recorded it. Pattern analysis showed it wasn't a message. It was a seed, within hours. Strange anomalies began to appear in Earth's communication grid. Audio glitches, static in news broadcasts, ghost signals and neural net calls. At first, it was dismissed as cosmic interference. But then people began to see things. A soldier in Nova Terra hallucinated her dead brother walking beside her during patrol. A child in Freeport started writing stories of events she'd never lived. A teacher began speaking in two voices, hers and someone else's. Each case had one thing in common. They all referenced a planet that didn't exist, a place no map could find, a place called Halomere, in a secure EarthGov bunker. Admiral Rain stood before the emergency council. She explained the truth as plainly as she could. The memory parasite adapted. We destroyed its body, but it found a way to survive as story. You're telling us we're under attack by ... fiction? One councilman said, half laughing. No, Rain replied. Not fiction. Not belief. People are remembering things that never happened. But to them, they feel real. That makes the parasite stronger. Another councilwoman frowned. You're saying it lives through ideas? Yes, Rain said. And it's spreading. Not through war. Not through ships. Through culture. All media transmissions were immediately placed under lockdown. Civilian memory backup systems were paused. AI-generated stories and simulations were temporarily banned. But it was too late. Humanity was a race of storytellers. They couldn't help it. Someone heard a whisper in a dream and turned it into a song. Someone else wrote a novel with a city called Eidolon, filled with strangers who looked just like us. The books were fiction. The dreams were dismissed. The parasite didn't care, because every time someone believed ... it grew. On Mars, a colony artist painted a mural of a massive crater with glowing dust at its center. She claimed it came to her in a vision. When asked what the shape meant, she replied, "It's a place where lost memories go." On Ganymede. A prisoner scrawled a map on the walls of his cell streets, towers, and names. He said he'd escaped from there, from a place where the sky watches you back. On Luna, a boy woke up crying, saying, "They're inside my dreams. They remember me better than I do." Commander Hart visited a grief counseling center for veterans. She watched as one woman explained a vivid memory of a bombing that destroyed her squad. But the records showed it never happened. Not to her. Not anywhere. When Hart gently told her this, the woman looked up and said, "Then why does it hurt so real?" That's when Hart understood. They hadn't killed the parasite. They had shared it. Dr. Rios proposed one last experiment. A controlled thought erasure field over a small EarthGov base. A test to see if a memory could be completely burned from every person and system within the zone. The result was worse than expected. Yes, the people forgot. But within hours, each began creating new versions of the forgotten space, drawing it, dreaming it, filling in blanks their minds couldn't tolerate. The parasite wasn't just living in memory anymore. It had embedded itself in human imagination. Admiral Raines stood before Earth's fleet and delivered the final truth. We faced an enemy made of fear, of trauma, of memory, and we won. But we didn't understand what we destroyed. The being was never one mind. It was what we lost, what we wished for, what we feared, became those things. And now it's inside our stories, our dreams. Our art, we left the planet, but it didn't leave us. The galaxy would never be the same. Not because of invasion, not because of death, but because of thought. It evolved into a living species. And now, anywhere humans dreamed, it could dream. Back.